My name is Sarah Sullivan, and I'm a nurse practitioner who learned the hardest way possible that some families value appearances more than lives. 5 years ago, my parents spent $230,000 on my sister's fairy tale wedding: custom Vera Wang gown, waterfront venue, 3-week Maldives honeymoon, the works. That same year, they refused to give me $85,000 to save my 6-year-old son's life. While my boy fought leukemia, they chose flower arrangements and champagne towers. While I mortgaged my future and borrowed from everyone I knew, they debated wedding cake flavors. Tonight, I'm standing at their charity gala with an envelope that will change everything. Inside are documents they never wanted anyone to see. Proof of a betrayal so calculated, it took a judge to untangle it. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly connect with this story. And if you're comfortable, share where you're watching from and what time it is there. It started with a phone call I'll never forget. 6 years ago, my sister Jessica announced her engagement at Sunday brunch at the Riverside Country Club, the kind of place where memberships cost $15,000 a year and everyone knows it. I remember watching her hold up her hand, that 4-carat Tiffany diamond catching the light. Our mother, Patricia, clutched her Hermes Kelly bag and actually teared up. My father, Michael, stood to make a toast with his scotch, the 30-year-old kind he kept in his mahogany home office. "Our Jessica deserves the wedding of her dreams," he said, and everyone at the table nodded like this was both obvious and profound. I was the practical one, always had been. I'd paid for my own nursing school while Jessica's MBA came with a check from Dad's retirement fund. I drove a 7-year-old Honda while Jessica leased a Mercedes. These weren't complaints, just facts I'd accepted as the natural order of things. My son Ethan, 5 years old then, played quietly in the corner of the private dining room. He was good at being invisible when the adults were focused on Jessica. We both were. "Sarah, you'll help with wedding planning, won't you?" Patricia asked, not really asking. "Jessica will need her big sister." "Of course," I said, because that's what good daughters do. Jessica showed us her Pinterest board on her phone. Thousands of images of white dresses, cascading flowers, crystal chandeliers. "I've been planning this since I was 12, she said. My parents beamed. This was their princess getting her castle. I didn't know then that this wedding would cost me everything. I didn't know that when I needed them most, those same parents would look at me across a mahogany desk and say the words that would break something fundamental between us. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 4 months after Jessica's engagement, Ethan collapsed during soccer practice. The diagnosis came 3 days later in Dr. Rachel Kim's office at Children's Hospital: acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Dr. Kim's wall was covered with diplomas from Johns Hopkins, medical journals, framed photos of smiling children who'd survived. I focused on those photos while she explained what came next. "The good news is, Sarah, you're a perfect bone marrow match," Dr. Kim said, her voice steady and kind. "The transplant gives him an excellent chance." "What's the bad news?" "The financial gap. Insurance will cover the chemotherapy and basic hospitalization, but the transplant procedure itself, the specialized facility, the 6-month post-operative care protocol, that's $85,000 out of pocket." I made $75,000 a year as a nurse practitioner. I was a single mother. I had a mortgage. I had exactly $4,000 in savings. "How long do we have?" I asked. 4 months, ideally. The sooner we do this, the better his success rate. Dr. Kim leaned forward. "Sarah, I know this is overwhelming, but document everything: the insurance denials, the bills, the timeline. You'll need it for financial appeals, for hardship programs. Keep records of everything." I nodded, already doing the math in my head, already knowing there was only one option I hadn't considered before, one I'd sworn I'd never need. I picked up my phone in the parking lot, hands shaking, and called my parents. "Dad, I need to talk to you and Mom in person. It's about Ethan. Is he okay? No, I said, but he can be. I just need help. I was about to learn what I really meant to them. Their house sat on the waterfront, appraised at $1.2 million the last time they'd mentioned it. I parked behind my father's Lexus and gathered my folder. Medical bills, insurance denial letters, Dr. Kim's treatment plan, everything organized the way I organized patient charts at work. Michael met me at the door of his home office. Golf trophies lined one shelf, financial planning certificates covered another wall. He gestured to the leather chair across from his mahogany desk. Patricia joined us, closing the door like we were about to discuss something shameful. I laid it out simply. Ethan's diagnosis, the treatment plan, the $85,000 gap. I slid the documents across the desk. I'm asking for a loan, not a gift, I said. I'll pay you back with interest, whatever terms you want. I just need help now while we have time. My father flipped through the papers. He exchanged a look with my mother, one of those married couple looks that communicates entire conversations. Sarah, he said finally, we can't disrupt our financial planning right now. We have Jessica's wedding. Our retirement accounts are structured very specifically. I'm asking for $85,000. You're spending $230,000 on a wedding. That's different, he said, and I watched his jaw tighten. That's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Medical situations have payment plans, hospital programs. Dad, this is Ethan's life. I'm not asking you to choose between your daughters. I'm asking you to help save your grandson. Patricia touched my hand. You're a smart woman, Sarah. Surely the hospital has hardship funds. We've worked very hard for our financial security. We can't just... I pulled my hand back. On the corner of his desk, I noticed a letter from Hayes & Associates law firm. Estate matters. My father saw me looking and flipped it face down. You'll find another way, he said. I left without another word. I found other ways. I took a second mortgage on my house, $60,000, at a brutal interest rate because my credit score had already taken hits from Ethan's mounting medical bills. The bank officer looked at me with something like pity when I signed. The hospital's hardship fund gave me $25,000, payable over 3 years. I started a crowdfunding campaign that raised $12,000 from friends, coworkers, and strangers who saw my son's photo and decided to care more than my own parents did. I picked up every extra shift the hospital would give me. I worked until my feet ached and my eyes burned, then came home to hold Ethan while he threw up from chemotherapy. Meanwhile, Jessica's Instagram showed venue tours and dress fittings at the Vera Wang boutique, cake tastings at bakeries where a single tier cost more than I made in a week, custom letterpress invitations at $12 each. My mother called one evening while I was reviewing bills at my kitchen table. Sarah, we'd love for you to do a reading at Jessica's wedding. Something about family and love. You have such a lovely voice. I looked at the stack of medical bills, at the payment plan schedules, at my son asleep on the couch with a bucket beside him. Sure, Mom, I can do that. Wonderful. Jessica will be so pleased. It's important that family is involved. After I hung up, I sat in the dark and thought about what that word meant. Family. The people who should show up when it matters. I said yes to that reading because I was still trying to be the good daughter. The one who didn't make waves. The one who smiled and played her part. I didn't know it would be the last time I'd put their comfort before my son's dignity. Jessica's wedding took place at the same waterfront venue where my parents now host their annual charity gala. 250 guests. $45,000 for the venue alone. I left Ethan with my neighbor. He was between chemo cycles, too weak to attend. I wore a dress I'd owned for 3 years and drove my Honda past the parking lot full of Mercedes and BMWs. The ice sculpture in the entrance cost more than a month of Ethan's medications. The seafood station featured lobster tails and jumbo shrimp on crushed ice. The bar served top-shelf liquor, and the live band had flown in from Nashville. Jessica looked beautiful in her custom Vera Wang gown, $15,000 of silk and lace. During the reception, my father gave his speech. "We spared no expense for our princess," he said, his voice thick with pride. "This is what family legacy looks like. This is what it means to give your children the best." I stood at the microphone for my reading, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Love is patient, love is kind. My voice cracked on the word kind. No one asked about Ethan. Not during cocktail hour, not during dinner, not during the cake cutting. Jessica showed me her honeymoon itinerary. 3 weeks in the Maldives, overwater bungalows, spa treatments, private dinners on the beach. $25,000. As I was leaving early, before the cake cutting, my mother found me in the hallway. "You look tired, dear," she said, adjusting her pearl necklace. "Maybe it's best you go. We don't want to bring down the mood." I drove home past all those luxury cars and felt something inside me break clean through. But it would be 5 years before I'd let them see the pieces. 2 weeks after the wedding, Ethan went into surgery. 8 hours. I sat alone in the surgical waiting room, watching families comfort each other, watching people who had someone to wait with them. The coffee was terrible. I drank 6 cups. When Dr. Kim finally emerged, still in her scrubs, I stood so fast I knocked over the last cup. "The surgery went perfectly," she said. "He's strong, Sarah, like his mom." I broke down right there in the hallway, the first time I'd cried since the diagnosis. Dr. Kim held me while I sobbed, and I remember thinking how strange it was that this woman, who'd known us for 6 months, felt more like family than my own parents. Recovery took 6 months of intensive care. I practically lived at the hospital, sleeping in the chair beside Ethan's bed. Complications added another $12,000 to the bill. My total debt reached $97,000. My parents sent a card. "Thinking of you." No visit, no phone call, no offer to help with the bills still arriving daily. Jessica posted photos from the Maldives, sunset dinners, couples massages, snorkeling in crystal clear water, my house filled with medical equipment, bills stacked on the kitchen table. We ate ramen most nights because it was cheap and I could make it with one hand while checking Ethan's vitals with the other. One afternoon, buried in the pile of mail, I found a formal letter from Hayes & Associates law firm. Estate of Margaret and Thomas Sullivan. Beneficiary notification. My grandparents. They'd passed away 3 years earlier. I opened it, skimmed the first paragraph, then set it aside. I was too exhausted to process legal language, too tired to care about estate matters. That letter sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I finally read it properly. When I did, everything changed. I read the letter 3 times before the words made sense. My grandparents, my father's parents, had established a trust fund when Ethan was born. $150,000, designated specifically for the education and medical care of Ethan Sullivan. The trust had been activated upon their deaths, 3 years ago, right before Ethan's diagnosis. The trustees were Michael and Patricia Sullivan, my parents. I sat at my kitchen table, hands shaking, reading the legal language over and over. The trust couldn't be diverted for other family expenses. It had to be used for its designated purpose: education and medical care. They'd known. The entire time I was begging for help, drowning in debt, mortgaging my future, they'd known there was $150,000 sitting in an account, legally designated for exactly what I needed it for. They'd let me destroy my financial life rather than use money that belonged to my son. I called Attorney Hayes the next morning. "Ms. Sullivan," he said, "I've been trying to reach you for months. As beneficiary guardian, you have rights regarding the trust administration. My parents are the trustees. Yes, And given the circumstances you've described, there may be grounds for removal based on breach of fiduciary duty. Breach of fiduciary duty, I repeated. They had a legal obligation to use those funds for Ethan's medical care. Their failure to do so while you incurred significant debt could be considered a violation of their trustee responsibilities. I made an appointment for the following week. That night, I pulled out every document I'd saved, every medical bill, every insurance denial, every email I'd sent my parents asking for help. Dr. Kim had told me to document everything. I hadn't known why then. Now I did. Attorney Hayes's office was lined with law degrees and leather-bound books. He reviewed my documents with the careful attention of someone who'd seen this kind of family betrayal before. "This is clear-cut," he said finally. "Your parents had a fiduciary duty to use trust funds for their designated purpose. Your son's medical crisis was exactly what the trust was designed for. Their refusal to act while you went into debt is actionable. What do I need to do?" "We file a petition to remove them as trustees and appoint you instead. We'll need your evidence, the medical bills with dates, proof they knew about the crisis, documentation of your debt. The timeline is crucial." I spread everything across his desk. The email I'd sent in February asking for $85,000. My father's response: "We cannot disrupt our financial planning at this time. The medical bills from March, the surgery in April, the mounting debt through September. They'll claim they were preserving the trust for Ethan's future education," Hayes said. "We'll need to prove the medical need was immediate and life-threatening." I handed him Dr. Kim's letter, the one that used words like urgent and 4-month window and optimal survival rate. "Perfect," Hayes said. "We file within the week, court hearing in 3 to 4 months." I spent those months gathering evidence while maintaining polite distance from my family, brief responses to texts, excuses for why we couldn't attend Sunday dinners. 2 weeks before the court hearing, my mother called. "Sarah, we need to talk. It's important." "What's wrong?" "Your father and we're having some financial difficulties. We need to discuss family support." I almost laughed. "Come over tomorrow," I said. "We should definitely discuss family support." They arrived in their older Mercedes. My father had sold the S-Class. My mother carried a plain leather purse instead of her usual designer bag. We sat in my living room, the one still cluttered with medical equipment I couldn't afford to have removed yet. "We need your help," Michael said. No preamble, no asking about Ethan. Patricia twisted her hands. "Your father's investments went bad. We lost over $200,000. And I need surgery. Nothing life-threatening, but insurance won't cover all of it. We're looking at $60,000 out of pocket." "We need you to co-sign a loan," my father said. "Or perhaps borrow against your future income. We're family. Family helps each other." I let the silence stretch. "We've always been there for you girls," Patricia added. "We raised you, educated you. You want me to co-sign a loan?" "We might have to sell the house," my father said. "Downsize. Give up the country club membership. We're asking our daughter for help in a crisis." "That's interesting," I said. "Tell me, do you remember when I needed to count on you?" Michael's face hardened. "That was different." "You're right. It was different. Ethan was 6 years old and dying. You're adults who made choices." "Sarah, please," Patricia said. "How can you be so cold?" "I learned from the best." I stood. "I can't help you financially. I'm still paying off the debt I took on to save Ethan's life. The debt I wouldn't have if you'd done what you were legally obligated to do." "Legally obligated?" Michael's voice rose. "The trust fund, Dad. Grandma and Grandpa Sullivan's trust fund for Ethan, the one you controlled, the one you never mentioned while I was begging for help." The color drained from both their faces. "Get out of my house." "Sarah, let us explain," Patricia started. "No." I walked to the door and opened it. "You taught me that family doesn't mean unconditional support. You taught me that financial planning comes before dying grandchildren. I'm simply applying the same principles you demonstrated so clearly." We were trying to preserve that money for Ethan's future. His future? I kept my voice level, professional, the way I spoke to difficult patients. He almost didn't have a future. And while you preserved his money, I went $97,000 into debt. I destroyed my credit score. I nearly lost this house. You're being dramatic, Michael said. I'm being factual. I have the documents to prove it. Every email, every bill, every date. I paused. So do the courts now. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. You sued us? I filed to remove you as trustees for breach of fiduciary duty. The hearing is next week. You'll be notified officially tomorrow. How can you do this to your own parents? Patricia's voice broke. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm protecting my son's interests, something you should have done 5 years ago. I held the door wider. We're done here. Sarah, all future communication goes through my attorney. His card is on the table. After they left, I stood in my doorway and watched them drive away. I felt calm, clear, like I'd finally stopped carrying something that was never mine to carry. Ethan came downstairs, 11 years old now, healthy and strong. Were those Grandma and Grandpa? Yes. They didn't say hi to me. I know, sweetheart. I pulled him close. Some people don't know how to show up for the people they're supposed to love, but that's their failing, not yours. Okay, he said, and went back to his homework. It was that simple for him. I wished it could be that simple for me. Jessica called that night. How can you do this to Mom and Dad? They raised you. They're going through a crisis and you're, what, punishing them? Did they tell you about the trust fund? Silence. What trust fund? Ask them about Grandma and Grandpa Sullivan's trust for Ethan, the $150,000 they controlled while I went into debt to save his life. That's different. That money is for Ethan's future. It was for his medical care. It says so in the trust documents. They let me borrow $97,000 instead of using money that was legally designated for exactly what I needed. You're being dramatic. They were trying to be responsible. I hung up. Over the next week, I received calls from my Aunt Carol, two of my mother's friends from the country club, even my father's brother. The message was always the same. Family forgives. Don't be vindictive. They made a mistake. You're being selfish. I blocked the numbers. My parents, I learned through Jessica, were telling everyone that I was punishing them for not enabling my poor financial planning, that I was holding a grudge over a simple disagreement, that I was trying to steal from them. Let them talk. I had court documents. I had evidence. I had the truth. 1 week before the hearing, I received an invitation in the mail. The annual Medical Heroes Charity Gala, the hospital's biggest fundraiser supporting pediatric cancer research. I was listed as a featured speaker. Topic: Family support in pediatric medical crisis. The venue, the same waterfront location where Jessica had gotten married. My parents were on the host committee. They'd be there. I called Dr. Kim. Did you arrange this? Your story needs to be told, Sarah. It will help other families. I accepted. They wanted to paint me as the villain? Fine. I'd give them an audience they couldn't control. The court hearing was scheduled for 3 days before the gala. I met with Attorney Hayes to coordinate timing. If the judge rules in your favor, it becomes public record immediately, he said. Anyone can access it. Good. I spent the next week preparing 2 presentations, one for the judge, one for the gala. The judge's was straightforward. Evidence, timeline, legal argument. Hayes would handle most of it. I just needed to be present and answer questions. The gala presentation was different. I built it like a case study, the kind I'd present at hospital training sessions. Facts, timeline, documents, photos of Ethan during treatment, and photos of him now, healthy and whole. The final slide would be the trust fund documents and court ruling. Dr. Kim reviewed it with me. Are you sure about this? It's going to be very public. That's exactly why I need to do it. Other families need to know they're not alone. And some people need to face consequences in front of the community they care so much about impressing. Your parents don't know you're speaking? They will when they read the program. I bought a new dress for the gala. Simple. Navy blue, professional. Nothing like the extravagant gowns my mother and sister would wear. I wasn't there to compete. I was there to tell the truth. The night before the hearing, Ethan found me at the kitchen table with my notes. Mom, are you nervous? No, sweetheart. I'm ready. Good. He hugged me. You're the bravest person I know. I learned from you. He went to bed, and I sat alone with my documents. 5 years of pain organized into folders. 5 years of silence about to end. I'd been waiting for this day since the moment they closed that office door and chose a wedding over their grandson's life. Tomorrow, everyone would know what they'd done. The courtroom was small. Just the judge, the attorneys, my parents, and me. Attorney Hayes presented our case methodically. Trust documents, medical bills with dates, insurance denials, the email chain. He pulled up my message from February 2019. Dad, I need $85,000 for Ethan's bone marrow transplant. Insurance won't cover the specialized facility. Please help. We have a 4-month window. My father's response: same day. We cannot disrupt our financial planning at this time. Hayes showed the bank records. That same month, my parents paid $45,000 to Jessica's wedding venue. Michael and Patricia sat rigid in their chairs. Their attorney argued they'd been preserving the trust for the beneficiary's education and didn't fully understand the urgency of the medical situation. Hayes countered, Your Honor, Ms. Sullivan is a nurse practitioner in pediatric oncology. She explicitly used the words life-threatening, urgent, and 4-month window. She provided medical documentation. The trustees chose to ignore their fiduciary duty. The judge reviewed the documents in silence. Finally, she looked up. The trust explicitly designates funds for medical care. The beneficiary's mother provided clear, documented notice of a life-threatening medical need. The trustees failed their fiduciary duty. She paused. Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan, you are removed as trustees effective immediately. Ms. Sarah Sullivan is appointed trustee. The trust funds are released for the beneficiary's use. She closed the folder. The court notes that Ms. Sullivan incurred $97,000 in debt for medical care while trust funds sat unused. She may pursue reimbursement from the former trustees for damages incurred due to their breach. Outside the courthouse, my father tried to speak to me. I handed him Attorney Hayes's card. All communication goes through him now. Then I added, I'll see you at the gala. His face went pale. 2 days before the gala, I met with Dr. Kim and the hospital's PR coordinator in a conference room. We need to make sure you're comfortable with this, the coordinator said. It's going to be a large audience, 300 people, media coverage. I'm comfortable. Dr. Kim touched my hand. Are you sure? This will be very public. Your family will be there. That's exactly why I need to do it. Other families need to hear this. They need to know they're not alone when their own family fails them. I looked at both of them. And some people need to face consequences where it matters most to them, in front of their community. We reviewed the presentation. Medical timeline, bills, photos of Ethan during treatment, thin, pale, fighting. Photos of him now, healthy, playing soccer, smiling. The final slide, the trust fund documents and the court ruling from 2 days ago. Public record, legally sound. This is powerful, the coordinator said quietly. Attorney Hayes reviewed everything that afternoon. You're not violating any laws. Everything you're presenting is either public record or your own experience. Legally, you're clear. And morally? You're telling the truth. If the truth embarrasses them, that's a consequence of their actions, not your words. That evening, I practiced my speech in front of my bathroom mirror. Calm. Professional. No anger. No vindictiveness. Just facts. Let the audience draw their own conclusions. I tried on my navy dress. Simple, appropriate, the opposite of everything my mother valued. Ethan knocked on my door. "You look nice, Mom." "Thank you, sweetheart." "Are you going to tell them what Grandma and Grandpa did?" "I'm going to tell the truth." "Good," he said. "People should know the truth." Out of the mouths of children. The next night, I would give them exactly that. The waterfront venue glowed with string lights and crystal, the same space where Jessica had married in silk and promises. Tonight it hosted 300 guests at $500 per plate. I arrived with Ethan. He wore a suit and tie, looking healthy and confident. 11 years old and alive, the only evidence that mattered. Guests approached us during cocktail hour. "You must be so proud. What a handsome young man. Is this your son? He looks wonderful." I spotted my parents across the room. Michael in a tuxedo, Patricia in an evening gown I didn't recognize, borrowed probably, not Chanel. They saw me and froze. Jessica and David stood near the silent auction table, looking uncomfortable. My mother cut through the crowd toward me. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" "I was invited to speak. Didn't you see the program?" She grabbed a program from a nearby table. Her hands shook as she read. Featured speaker, Sarah Sullivan, RN, MSN, "When Family Fails, a Mother's Fight for Her Son's Life." The blood drained from her face. "You can't do this." "I can, actually. Dr. Kim invited me. The hospital approved it." My father appeared beside her. "This is humiliating." "You're right," I said. "It is humiliating. I'm glad you'll finally understand how that feels." They rushed to find the event coordinator. I watched them gesture frantically, watched the coordinator shake her head, watched Dr. Kim step in and say something that made my parents back away. The lights dimmed. A voice announced dinner service, followed by the evening's keynote address. I took my seat at the head table. My parents sat 3 tables away, trapped by social convention and the 298 witnesses watching. My father looked at me across the room with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear. After dinner, the lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the podium. The MC's voice filled the room. "Our keynote speaker tonight knows firsthand the challenges families face during pediatric medical crises. As a nurse practitioner in pediatric oncology and a mother who navigated her own son's life-threatening illness, she brings both professional expertise and personal experience to tonight's conversation. Please welcome Sarah Sullivan." Applause rippled through the room. I walked to the podium, passing my parents' table without looking at them. "Good evening. My name is Sarah Sullivan, and 5 years ago, my 6-year-old son was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia." The screen behind me lit up with Ethan's photo from treatment. Bald, thin, hospital gown, IV lines. The audience went silent. He needed a bone marrow transplant. I was a perfect match. The surgery would save his life. I clicked to the next slide. Medical bills, insurance denial letters, the amounts clearly visible. The challenge was financial. After insurance, we faced $85,000 in out-of-pocket costs for the specialized facility and 6 months of post-operative care. I paused, let that number sink in. As a single mother and nurse practitioner making $75,000 a year, I didn't have that money. I had a mortgage, I had $4,000 in savings, so I did what many of you might do in that situation. Another pause. The room was absolutely still. I asked my family for help. I could feel my parents' eyes on me, could sense them willing me to stop. What happened next taught me something I'll never forget about the difference between family and support. I clicked to the next slide. The timeline began. This is the timeline of my son's crisis and my family's response. The slide showed a month-by-month breakdown. Month 1, diagnosis, treatment plan, insurance denial of specialized facility costs. Month 2, I requested financial help from my parents. Here's the email exchange. The text appeared on screen, names redacted but the words clear. We cannot disrupt our financial planning at this time. You should explore payment plans. That same month, my family spent $230,000 on expenses, including a $45,000 venue, a $15,000 wedding dress, a $25,000 honeymoon, and various other costs for a wedding. Audible gasps, murmurs rippled through the audience. I kept my voice steady, professional. I took a second mortgage on my house, $60,000 at a high interest rate. I borrowed $25,000 from the hospital hardship fund. I worked double shifts while my son underwent chemotherapy. Next slide. My debt summary, $97,000 in bold numbers. My son survived, thanks to brilliant doctors like Dr. Kim, and thanks to the fact that I was willing to destroy my financial life to save his. The next slide showed Ethan now, healthy, smiling, playing soccer. The audience applauded. Some people wiped their eyes. But that's not the end of the story. The applause faded. Everyone leaned forward. Because 3 months ago, I received a letter that changed everything I thought I knew about that crisis. I clicked to the next slide. The trust fund documents appeared. Official legal headers, clear text. My late grandparents had established a $150,000 trust fund for my son, specifically designated for his education and medical care. Confusion rippled through the room. The trust was activated 3 years before my son's diagnosis. I paused. The trustees, the people legally obligated to use this money for his medical care, were my parents. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. I let the reaction build, then continued. While I was begging for help, while I was going $97,000 into debt, while I was working myself to exhaustion, there was $150,000 sitting in an account, legally designated for exactly what I needed it for. People turned in their seats, looking for my parents. I didn't need to point them out. 3 days ago, a judge ruled that the trustees breached their fiduciary duty by failing to use designated medical funds for my son's life-threatening illness. The court ruling appeared on screen. Here's what that looked like in practice. The final comparison slide. Left side. Trust fund balance during crisis, $150,000, unused. Right side. Debt incurred by mother, $97,000. Bottom line. Family wedding expenses same period, $230,000. The silence was absolute. I'm not telling you this for revenge. I'm telling you this because families facing medical crises need to know several things. I counted on my fingers. 1. Document everything. Every bill, every conversation, every request for help. You'll need it. 2. Ask questions about all available resources, including family trusts you might not know exist. 3. Understand that sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from. I looked out at the audience, at the doctors who understood, at the parents who'd fought similar battles, at the donors who gave because they believed in helping families like mine. My son is healthy now. I have legal control of his trust fund, and I've learned to set boundaries that protect both of us. I clicked to the final slide. Ethan's smiling face. Thank you. The room erupted, standing ovation, people crying, doctors nodding. I stepped away from the podium and looked directly at my parents' table. The applause continued as I walked off stage. Dr. Kim met me with tears streaming down her face. "You just helped more families than you know," she whispered, embracing me. The hospital board president approached next. That was the most powerful thing I've heard in 20 years of these events. But I was watching my parents' table. They sat frozen. Patricia was crying. Michael stared at his plate. Jessica looked horrified. The other people at their table, country club friends, business associates, had physically shifted their chairs away, creating distance. Within minutes, the social isolation was visible. People who'd been chatting with my parents before dinner now avoided eye contact. Former friends found urgent reasons to visit other tables. The woman who'd been sitting next to my mother moved to an empty seat across the room. I watched the hospital board president approach my father. They spoke briefly. Michael's face went from red to white. "We need to talk about your position on the board," I heard him say. Around the room, phones appeared. Social media posts. "Most powerful speech I've ever heard. Can't believe what this family did. This is why we need to support medical families." My mother tried to approach me as guests surrounded me with support. Two security guards, men I'd worked with for years, stepped between us. "Ms. Sullivan is occupied," one said politely but firmly. A woman my age touched my arm. "My sister went through something similar, different circumstances, but the same family abandonment. Thank you for giving her words for what happened." A doctor I'd worked with. "We see this more than people know, families who can help but won't. Thank you for speaking up." My parents stood at their table, alone in a room full of people, finally understanding what it felt like to be abandoned. I found them in the parking lot. They'd left early, unable to face the room any longer. "How could you humiliate us like that?" Patricia's voice was shrill. "In front of everyone we know." I told the truth. "If you're humiliated, that's because of your choices, not my words." Michael stepped forward. "That trust fund was complicated. We were trying to preserve it for Ethan's future." His future. I kept my voice level, calm. "He almost didn't have a future. And while you preserved his money, I went $97,000 into debt. I destroyed my credit. I nearly lost my house." "You're exaggerating." "I have the documents. Every email, every bill, every date. The judge saw them. Now everyone else has too." Jessica appeared from behind their car. "Sarah, they made a mistake." I turned to her. "They spent more on your wedding flowers than it would have cost to save your nephew's life. Don't talk to me about mistakes." "We're still your parents," Patricia said, her voice breaking. "And Ethan is still your grandson, the one you let me sacrifice everything to save while you sat on his money." Michael tried a different approach. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing. That's what you gave me when I needed you, and that's what I want from you now." "You're destroying this family." "No." I met my mother's eyes. "I'm just refusing to pretend it was ever whole." "Sarah, please. If you want a relationship with your grandson, you'll go through my attorney. All communication goes through him. Don't contact me directly again." I walked to my car where Ethan waited. Behind me, I heard my mother crying. I didn't look back. I'd spent 5 years looking back. That was over. Jessica called 1 week later. I almost didn't answer. "David is leaving me." "I'm sorry to hear that." "He said he can't trust me anymore." Her voice was thick with tears. "He found out I knew about the trust fund." My hand tightened on the phone. "You knew?" "Mom told me 2 years ago. She said it was complicated, that you were being dramatic about the medical bills, that they were trying to preserve it for Ethan's real future needs." She sobbed. I didn't understand you were drowning." "You didn't want to understand. It was easier to believe I was just jealous of your wedding." "I know. David said the same thing. He said I'm like them, selfish, privileged, blind to anyone's pain but my own." She paused. "He's right." I said nothing. "The wedding wasn't worth it, Sarah. We're $50,000 in debt from the honeymoon and the lifestyle we couldn't afford. I was trying to keep up appearances, just like Mom and Dad. And now my marriage is over, and my sister won't speak to me, and I deserve all of it." "Jessica, I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean anything now. I know sorry doesn't pay your bills or give you back those 5 years, but I'm sorry." I sat down on my couch. "It means you're finally seeing clearly. What you do with that is up to you." Could we maybe talk sometime? Not now, I know, but someday?" "Maybe, if you do the work, if you actually change." "I'm starting therapy next week." "Good. That's a start." After I hung up, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction at her suffering, just sadness. The golden child's pedestal had crumbled, and underneath was just a scared woman who'd never learned to stand on her own. The consequences unfolded over the following months. Michael was removed from the hospital charity board within 2 weeks. Fiduciary duty violations, they said. The position had come with a $50,000 annual consulting contract with the hospital foundation. Gone. Patricia was quietly dropped from her country club committees. The membership wasn't revoked, that would have been too obvious, but the invitations stopped coming. The phone calls went unreturned. Their friends, those careful social climbers who'd attended Jessica's wedding, suddenly had other commitments, other priorities. The financial impact was measurable. 3 of my father's major financial advisory clients terminated their contracts. They didn't want to be associated with someone who'd violated fiduciary duty, even in a family matter. Lost income, approximately $120,000 per year. They were forced to sell the waterfront house, not because they were destitute, but because they could no longer afford the property taxes combined with my mother's medical bills and their reduced income. They downsized to a modest condo. Attorney Hayes sent them a formal demand letter. As the court had noted, I was entitled to reimbursement for medical debt incurred due to their trustee breach. We settled. They would pay $50,000 over 5 years, all they could realistically afford given their new financial situation. The money would go directly to paying off my remaining medical debt. My mother's sister hosted Thanksgiving that year. She didn't invite my parents. I can't condone what they did, she told me when she called to invite Ethan and me. 6 months after the gala, I received the first settlement payment, a check for $10,000. I deposited it and felt nothing. No triumph, no vindication. The money didn't heal anything, but the boundaries did. 1 year after the gala, Ethan asked me about his grandparents. We were in the car after his soccer game. He'd scored 2 goals. I'd cheered until my voice was hoarse. Why don't Grandma and Grandpa come to my games anymore? I chose my words carefully. We have some grown-up disagreements about respect and boundaries. Is it because of my medical bills? It's because of choices they made during that time, choices that hurt us. He was quiet for a moment. Do you hate them? No, sweetheart, I don't hate them, but I don't trust them to treat us with the respect we deserve. Dr. Kim says you're the bravest person she knows. Dr. Kim is pretty brave herself, so are you. I don't remember being brave. I just remember you were always there. My throat tightened. That's what mothers do. We show up. Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard. At his next game, I looked around at the people who had shown up. Dr. Kim, who came when her schedule allowed, colleagues from the hospital, Ethan's friends' parents, the community we'd built. Ethan scored a goal and ran to the sideline, pointing at me. Did you see? I saw everything. After the game, he asked if we could get ice cream. We sat outside the shop, and he told me about school, about his friends, about his plans for summer. Normal things. Kid things. We'd fought so hard for his life that I'd forgotten we needed to build our life. Now, finally, we could. Mom? Yes? I'm glad it's just us. I pulled him close. Me too, buddy. Me too. We didn't need people who couldn't show up when it mattered. We had each other. And that was enough. 1 year after the gala, my life looked different. The medical debt was paid off. Combination of the trust fund, the settlement payments, and my own work. My credit score was recovering. I'd refinanced my mortgage with better terms. The hospital promoted me to senior nurse practitioner. I now lead the family support program, helping other parents navigate the financial and emotional challenges of pediatric medical crises. Ethan thrived. Healthy, active, no signs of cancer recurrence. The trust fund remainder, $65,000, was invested for his college education. My parents and I maintained minimal contact. Birthday cards, polite distance. They'd asked, through Attorney Hayes, if they could see Ethan. I'd said maybe, eventually, if they demonstrated consistent respect for our boundaries. So far, they hadn't. Jessica and I met for coffee occasionally. She was in therapy, working through her own realizations about family dysfunction. We were rebuilding something, slowly. Trust had to be earned. I started dating someone, another nurse, someone who understood long hours and hard choices, someone who respected boundaries. Most importantly, I no longer felt guilty for protecting myself and my son. I volunteered at medical family support groups, sharing my story with parents facing similar crises, helping them understand their rights, encouraging them to document everything, reminding them that protecting themselves wasn't selfish. One mother approached me after a session. "I've been feeling so guilty about being angry at my family for not helping. Your story helped me understand I'm not wrong to expect support." "You're not wrong," I told her. "Family should show up when it matters. If they can't or won't, that's their failure, not yours." She cried. I held her hand. This was why I'd spoken up. Not for revenge. For this. For the other families who needed to hear they weren't alone. People ask me if I regret exposing my parents publicly. The answer is no. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because silence protects dysfunction. After that speech, dozens of families reached out. People who'd faced similar betrayals. People who'd been gaslit into thinking they were too sensitive or holding grudges. People who'd sacrificed everything while family members with resources stood by and watched. They needed to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, that protecting yourself isn't selfish, that you don't owe endless forgiveness to people who've never apologized or changed. My son is healthy. We have a life built on honesty and respect. I sleep well at night knowing I taught him something my parents never taught me. Your worth isn't determined by how much you're willing to sacrifice for people who won't sacrifice for you. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when it matters. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who can't or won't show up for you. If you're facing a medical crisis, document everything. Every bill, every conversation, every request for help. Know your rights. Ask about all available resources, including trusts or funds you might not know exist. And never let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself and your children. Last week, Ethan and I sat on our porch at sunset. He was doing homework. I was reading. "Mom?" "Yeah, buddy?" "We're going to be okay, right?" I looked at him, healthy, strong, alive, and smiled. "We already are." If this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps other families find these stories when they need them most. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who didn't respect your needs? Or navigated a medical crisis without the support you expected? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, you're not alone, and protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Thank you for listening to my story. Take care of yourselves and each other.